everyone, and welcome to the Weeknight. I'm Michael Steele with Symone Sanders-Townsend and Alicia Menendez. Breaking tonight, the Trump administration refusing to answer basic questions about the stunning attack at the White House Correspondents Dinner, nearly 48 hours later. In moments, we'll be joined by a former Secret Service agent to discuss the night's massive security failures.
Also ahead, the president already using this attack to target perceived foes and to get his way on the White House ballroom. Senator Jackie Rosen, who was at the dinner, is with us.
And later, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis unveils the congressional map he wants to use to rig the midterms for Republicans. Democrats are standing by with lawsuits. Sky Perryman joins the conversation in just a bit. We begin with breaking news on Saturday's massive security breach at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. First, new details about the suspect. Today, Cole Allen made his first appearance in federal court. He faces several charges, including attempted assassination of the president. And as MSNOW's Carol Lenning reports, quote, this is the third time in less than 2 years that an armed and untrained person appeared set on harming Trump and piercing several layers of security, Secret Service protection using fairly unsophisticated methods. This could be a time for accountability and another moment for the Secret Service to reflect on how to best protect our government officials. Instead, at a news conference this afternoon, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche downplayed the security breach. Here's how Blanche and others in the administration tried to reframe the lapse in security.
Law enforcement did not fail. They did exactly what they are trained to do. This was not an accident. It was the result, as we know now, of preparation.
The president has said he believes that the protocols worked. So Secret Service did their jobs well. They communicated with one another to remove the president and the vice president to safety as quickly as they could.
I know the public has a yearning for information, but just remind yourself of how much information you have already received, how transparent this administration has been. In less than 48 hours, you know almost every single thing we know.
You know, go ahead, Mr.
No, I'm just going to say that's just a load, all of that, because the Secret Service were not able to do what they were there to do, and that is protect. We witnessed, the three of us witnessed, Secret Service agents climbing over tables to get to their protectee. They were up against a wall. Some of them weren't even in the room. So how can this administration now sit back and say that this was not a catastrophic failure of the ability to protect members of the cabinet, let alone the president himself?
I mean, this is just stunning things that we're hearing from the administration in the last 48 hours, really. And I will say there's a lot of conversation about misinformation and disinformation online. And I think we need to be honest about something, is that distrust just doesn't appear out of thin air. It is earned, frankly. And what we know is that this administration has not been transparent with us, the media, with the American people in the past. And so I am aghast by some of the crazy things I'm seeing online. But people are seeing with their own two eyes and hearing from people who are in the room accounts that differ from what the administration is saying. And that gap is where I think a lot of these conspiracy theories are being fostered. And so the best thing the administration can do, is to tell the truth, to be honest about what they do know, to not gaslight us by saying everything was great, because it wasn't.
Well, and I also think it is interesting just how quickly the president has pivoted to using this as an opportunity to repitch his ballroom to Congress, to the American people, and the fact that DOJ is stepping in order to help him. Let's continue this conversation with former Secret Service agent Bill Gage.
Bill, thank you for being with us. I have been in briefings with U.S. Secret Service. I have argued with agents on the detail, saying like, oh, we really want to go here. And they're like, we cannot do that. We got to find a middle ground. So I understand the process and the things that the great lengths that service members go through to ensure the safety of the protectee and the people around them. From your perspective, yes, I think did the Secret Service, the lead up to the incident, did they do what is considered protocol?
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I just want to say that you and Mr. Steele have a unique perspective on this. You with your interactions with the Biden administration, you know about the Secret Service. Mr. Steele, probably one of the few commentators on air that has probably had a protective detail at some point in his career. So he probably has a unique perspective on this as well. But yeah, listen, the Secret Service protective model worked here. They have overlapping and interlocking sort of concentric rings of security. One of them was stretched, by that the suspect being able to breach sort of the magnetometer checkpoint. There are other sort of rings of security that when one stretches, the other overlaps. So I think that's what happened here. This individual was initially momentarily able to take those agents by surprise and the uniform division officers by surprise at the checkpoint. They did recover pretty quickly and react, and I stop him from entering the ballroom. There would have been other agents at the door, also inside the ballroom, just inside. So there would have been other agents, that he would have encountered had he made it to the door. But listen, the Secret Service is not without blame. They're staffed by humans. Humans make mistakes. I think the Secret Service is going to look at this like they did in Butler and make changes. I think they're going to make immediate changes. I think you're going to see some stuff, some changes immediately with the King's visit this week. So, just circling back to answer your question, Symone, I think the protective model worked, but in this case, there was a lot of luck involved.
Bill, it's funny you say that. My wife reminded me when I got back home after the dinner on Saturday of an incident that happened during our inauguration, a party. The governor and I were working a rope line, and the team had forgot to tell our detail that there were going to be balloons. And one of the balloons popped. And the next thing I know, the governor and I, we were gone. Our wives were left behind, but we were gone. And so this idea of protection becomes a real big deal. And the men and women who are there to do their thing because of the responsibility they left behind, they're left there to do. And it reminds me of what Carol Lenning reported as well, noting the three problems with this correspondents' dinner in terms of security. One, unlike the agents shielding the president and vice president, the agents who protect several other senior administration officials instead waited outside or on the ballroom's perimeter because there wasn't room for them to be seated. This is one of the most coveted tickets in the city, said one of the former Secret Service agents. The Secret Service arranges a hold area for all these detail leaders to wait and stand by. That's not the protocol, as Symone knows very well and can speak to. How do you get to your protectee if you're in a waiting area, a hold area? And as I said, we witnessed these individuals having to climb over tables and bodies that were hunkered down under those tables to get to the cabinet official or others to get them escorted out of the room.
Yeah, listen, I helped Carol with that article. I'm quoted in there. I worked with her on that piece. And so one of the things that clearly the Secret Service is going to improve upon is the evacuation of other cabinet officials that are at these events. But that was clearly not planned for and not discussed in some of the lead up to this event. And you can clearly see that when there was an emergency, you could clearly see what happened, just panic. You have RFK literally stepping over guests to be evacuated out of there by his detail. So, but, listen, access to the event is controlled by staff. And it's one of the most coveted events every year in DC. Everybody wants a ticket. And, when you're doing the advance for this, the seats fill up fast. And it becomes very difficult for the Secret Service to find seats for the protective details inside the event, because the staff, they want tickets for everybody. And before you know it, there's no more room. So, for some of these protective details, typically the Secret Service will have a hold area for these other details to be at. I'm not sure what was done here and why that wasn't done. They typically have an area just reserved just off the event room for these protective details to stage in the event something happens. And it appears just by what we can see on some of the footage that didn't happen here.
That room is always packed like sardines. Bill Gage, thank you so much for your time and your expertise. Let's bring in former Assistant Special Agent in Charge at the FBI, Michael Feinberg. He is now an MSNOW National Security and Intelligence Analyst. I want to be clear. I don't think any of us think this is actually about this dinner. Right? Like it happened to have played out at this specific dinner. But to me, as I watched agents take their protectees in what felt like an enormous delay to a place of safety, my question was about America's national security and what this one incident is teaching us about how the institutions that are supposed to keep America safe are actually working?
Yeah, I don't think it's a surprise to anybody at this table or really anybody viewing this show that law enforcement organizations, intelligence agencies, departments that used to be resolutely apolitical because they were entirely mission focused have had to do a pivot under threat of force, under threat of firings, under mass resignations, for this administration to use them as functionally political tools. The Department of Homeland Security, under which the Secret Service now falls in the post 9/11 world, has other priorities right now. It's an open secret that the only thing the Secretary of Homeland Security is going to be focused on for the remainder of this president's term is immigration enforcement. I saw it with my own agency, the FBI, where we were ordered to devote at times 25% of our investigative workforce, not our total workforce, I'm talking just about the people who would normally be carrying guns and badges out on the street actually solving crimes. We had to dedicate them to doing perimeter security for ICE. So nobody has the freedom or institutional independence anymore to really focus on their primary missions. They're taking orders not based on what needs to get done for the safety of the country, but based on what's going to pull good for this White House.
You know, I think that's crazy, but that's the truth. And that's why we have to talk about it. I think what disturbs me, what disturbs me most, many things disturb me, but what disturbs me most about where we are, again, 48 hours from the incident, is in fact that the administration, it feels like, wants us to just move on quickly with their narrative. It's like anybody asking questions about what the Secret Service did, somehow they're wishing for harm on the president. Anybody that's not on the same, ringing from the same handbook, we should all thank the Secret Service. I'm grateful that the president and the vice president were not harmed. I'm grateful that the cabinet secretaries were not harmed. I am concerned that the Secret Service, who was in charge of securing that site, because when the president and the vice president attend, the Secret Service are in charge of the security. I'm concerned that the people in charge of securing that site, it wasn't secure. And so the president and the vice president and the people with protected details are okay, but what about everybody else in that room? And it made me think about our children, or just everyday American citizens, frankly, who in various spaces and places across this country have had the experience that the three of us at this table had Saturday night. We were hiding under a table together because we didn't know if the people running in were the assailants or not. People had guns drawn. That has happened in many other places across this country, and we were lucky. Some other people were not as lucky. And so I don't want to just move on from this. I think the government owes us some answers, and their lack of answers is why the people out there on the internet and in my neighborhood and in my group chats are saying, oh, this was staged. They have to answer the questions.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, I think you get at the crux of the matter, which is just, we don't live in the same country we did 10, 20, 30 years ago, where violence is something that does not affect most people. We live in a country where we are too quick to pull the proverbial trigger, and in some cases too quick to pull a literal trigger. And that is all the more reason why you need temperate, sober, meticulous professionals at the top of every law enforcement agency and every intelligence agency, simply because there is little room for error. People's lives actually depend on it. But instead, when you get people who even 5 or 6 years ago never would have been confirmed to their positions, I mean, Kash Patel never would have been confirmed by the Senate in 2016. John Ratcliffe wasn't initially confirmed when he was nominated to be the Director of National Intelligence. We are dealing with the B and C teams here, and the American people deserve the A team. And as for the conspiracy theories that are now setting social media afire, it's important to remember the real progenitors of conspiracies in American political life in our era have been the leaders of the MAGA movement. You know, the Epstein files, which are causing such trouble for this White House now, are in the news because Donald Trump's surrogates, during the 4 years he was lawfully out of power, wouldn't stop talking about this case because they thought it could redound to their benefit. And now they're realizing once you stir the pot, you have to deal with the consequences.
So I want to go back to the point you made in response to Symone, because I think it's profoundly important. Because for me, you talk about we're dealing with the B, C, I would say F team. Y'all remember that show, F Troop? No, y'all don't. But y'all too young for that.
I'm going to Google it.
But yeah, Google it. But it was the castaways. It was, it were the guys who just couldn't cut it in the military. And that's what we got here. Men and women who just, in no other circumstance would be in the jobs they're in. So what does that tell you? And what should it tell all of us? It's not Kash Patel. It's not Hegseth, right? It's Donald Trump. This rots from the top. We are here right now because we have a leadership that keeps drawing us further and deeper into this particular abyss. And how we turn out of it becomes more on us than anything else. Because at the end of the day, Donald Trump will keep doing Donald Trump things, right? And he's going to take this. I mean, the first words out of his damn mouth wasn't consoling the country in the moment. It wasn't, okay, everybody, let's settle down. We're all okay. As president, I'm going to help us get through this. No, his first thing was, now you know why I want my ballroom.
Yeah, look, regardless of whether we like it, ordinary citizens take their cues from leadership.
Exactly.
Those are the norms we inherit. We watch TV, we read newspapers, we read books. We look to people to emulate. And for most of my lifetime, the president was the ultimate person you can emulate. And what we are seeing now, what I saw in the FBI, for example, was lower ranking people seeing what the president gets away with and realizing, wait, I can be vulgar. I can be obnoxious. I could be rapaciously ambitious and cast aside all norms and rules that might hem me in. And so now it's not just the rot at the White House. It's also the rot of the more senior executives in many of these agencies who are trying to use this opportunity to get ahead.
Yep.
All right, Michael Feinberg, so grateful to be able to call on your expertise. Thank you. Do not go anywhere. We're going to continue this conversation in just a moment with Senator Jackie Rosen at the table. And later, we're going to break down the demands from Trump and his administration to build the East Wing ballroom in the wake of the attack, why those demands make absolutely no sense. Also, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis looking to rig his state's congressional map to help Trump. All that and more is ahead. You are watching The Weeknight.
Congress is demanding answers and transparency after the attack at the White House Correspondents Dinner. Well, today, the Secret Service director is scheduled to brief the leaders of the Senate Judiciary Committee. That's according to a source familiar with the meeting. I will note, as my colleague Alicia Menendez just did before we came back from commercial break, it's almost 7:30. Has it happened or not? Several members of Congress were inside the ballroom Saturday night, including Speaker of the House Mike Johnson. Joining us now is Democratic Senator Jackie Rosen of Nevada. She attended the White House Correspondents' Dinner this weekend as well.
Senator, do you know if your colleagues have been briefed?
I do not. I'm sure it was at 7:30 because today is a fly-in day on a Monday. So people are coming from all around the country. You come from the West Coast, you leave at 7, 8 in the morning. With the time change, you don't get to the area till 5 or 6 at night.
If you were in that briefing, what question would you have?
I'd have a lot of questions. I can tell you, I know you were there. No one ever checked our ID. No one ever. You flashed that little ticket, little piece of paper. I could have shown him anything. Nobody really looked at it. And I'm going to give a little plug for the Las Vegas Convention Center. You're registered for a convention. You're registered for something. There's all the tables by the alphabet. You come. You have your name. Are you registered? You got your ID. And they tell you your table number. You show your ticket. It's not rocket science. And so this is a small crowd compared to a lot of the crowds we have back in my hometown. So there was not enough security on the outside. And then, of course, that room is just packed. So to the point is everyone's detailed. We're all standing on the perimeter. Again, not the safest thing.